Hi and welcome to part 2 of the basing video. Slight apology to be made. The base itself has been primed, glued and detailed with some barbed wire, which wasn't done in the last episode, I'm sorry. That was just purchased online and stuck in place with some paper clips, cut in half and bent round. It did take a week for the glue and the sculpting to dry, so these were little jobs I did waiting for it to dry basically. With that out the way, I do apologise and do enjoy part 2. So we're back and working on the Porphyrion base. This is it after it's been roughly undercoated. So we're using the German red brown primer as per usual from Vallejo. The way we got all the bits and pieces to stick prior to priming was to probably run a 30% PVA glue to water mix, and then with a pipette like this one, I would just suck up the mixture and then just let it drip onto the areas where the stones were, and it secured all the stones really nicely, even on areas like on this box. It doesn't need to be thick. You don't want it to be thick, it just wants to be runny enough to disperse, the water to evaporate and the PVA to just stick all the rocks down. So this is where we're at the moment. We didn't record the PVA mix because it was just like dripping water onto a base for about half an hour. And once that had dried, that only took maybe, how long? A day, good day to dry. The next plan was to give it a few coats of surface primer. We're avoiding getting it on here because we're going to keep as much of this painted as possible, just to save us some time. We will paint the white on this side and probably a bit on this off side as well. But on the whole, that's where we're going to start. So the reason why we chose red brown primer as opposed to a black or a dark grey or a white is because this is going to be a Martian base. So really, if we look at a palette choice of here, these are basically our colours. So we've already got the base worked out, the darkest shadow as the primer. The other two I've got here are rust and light rust. But we're going to need to get some greys into here as well, because there is some rock work every now and then. There's also some metallic plates that we're going to need to pick out. And although we're going to be covering a lot of this with the enamels and the pigments, we do want to pick out some of these rocks and areas. In fact, we might pick out a lot of them in different shades of grey mixed in with the rust colours. And of course there's all these ruins as well. The ruins will rust up. We'll make them all rusty. We're not going to worry about colours on them as yet. We'll then probably dry brush with some silvers over the end. But we need to pick out some contrasting colours to the reds and the blacks and the whites of the night itself. So we might bring in some really like dark, almost like a dark angel green to some of the bits of paint work that still exists. So I think the first thing we're actually going to look at doing is getting the airbrush and spraying like this floor area, like where's our colour? Exhaust manifold. It's a dirty, almost bronzy silver colour. So that's 77723 exhaust manifold by Metal Colour. We'll spray all this area silver. We'll spray the barrel silver as well, and this ruin here and this panel. Just so we've got a different base. So we'll have our Earth base, or our Mars base to be exact, and we'll have the majority of the metal's done. That's what we're going to do first, so we'll give it a bit of a shake. Grab the airbrush. Did clean the airbrush, so we're okay. Put a bit in. I'm just going to start spraying the areas that we want. Now there is a lot of detail within this, like all the pipe work and stuff. We're not going to worry about it because it's going to be full of pigment and dirt. Any overspray, that's fine, because we're going to be covering it over and touching it up. I'm going to spray a bit of this metallic as well, just so we can get that colour change. Spin it round to this side. Just loosely, just adding some tones here and there. The barrel, let's do the barrel. A lot of this is almost going to be impressionistic, so as long as we get an impression of what we're doing, it'll be fine. Let's do this metal container a little bit, get some metal tones in there, and on the side of that barrel, the box, we might as well do a little bit. And on here, although it's going to be white, you might do a little bit of chipping. So we'll stick some metallics on that box. And this barrel. Here and there. And again on this like door barricade thing. Get some metals on. Another bit of stuff down here. Some colours in. I would say nearly there. The barbed wires we're going to leave for now. I'm not going to worry too much about those. Just try and get some more of this in here. There we go. Right. Oh, there's another panel down here, look. Save our paint. Actually a hair there I've spotted. Let's get rid of that. Next stage is going to be laying some other colours. So we're going to do the rocks last. Same way as we just sprayed in, but we're going to now start looking at a little bit of the surface primer. Just to touch up a little bit of that overspray. So we'll put a little bit of that in. Because it doesn't matter if we get the earthy colours over the top of the metal, but we wanted to get the metal to be fully covered. So let's just fix these areas where I've made a mess with positioning the knight. And where else did we get some nice overspray down here? And in the back. You could do this with a brush. We're just doing it with an airbrush just for speed. So cover a bit up there. Any more we can see? I think there's a bit under there. Okay, so a bit happy with that now. Now I'm going to start sticking some other colours in. So we're going to have a look at, first of all, at our light rust or our rust. What have we got? I think we're going to go for just the rust. Give it a shake. I haven't used this for quite a while, so I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm just going to modulate the earth colours. We haven't even got rid of this paint in here. I'm just going to do like a second coat until it starts coming through. There we go, starting to get the colour change now. It's not super savage at this point, we've still got a lot of that original colour in. Just check the colour. Probably got a bit more lightness to go through. We'll dry a bit and see how the colour changes. This subtle mind. So we probably won't see a lot of this when we go for all the crusted rusts that we're going to put over the top. So let's empty most of this out. into the water bin. And replace with the light rust. A bit more contrast, hopefully. You'll notice that a lot of this procedure is just, as you go along, you find out what works and what doesn't. Okay. I'm going to try and spray this from a low angle, all from the same viewpoint, so at this angle is where I want to be spraying from. And there's reasons, I'll show you the reasons when we get round the other side. We can tilt a little bit, but I don't want to go too much. Just so we've got what looks to be really, really orange on one side, and as we turn, it should start looking a lot more brown. So when we look from different angles, it can start to colour differently. Oh, we've spanned the thing off the board. So most orange, most brown. And that'll do for a first pass of coloration. It just gives the forms of the rocks something to kick out against when you're looking at it. So we need to bring in some greys now. What greys can we bring in? Not many greys. I'm just looking at the coloration, the paleness to work with, because we need to bring in a little bit, maybe. What is this one? This one's a bit of a browny grey. This is cold grey, but it's got a lot of browning by the looks of it. I'll give it a shake and see what happens. And we're just going to pick out things like these bits of slate and the larger rocks. Give it a shake and squidge a bit out. Yeah, it's definitely a warm grey. It says it's cold grey. It's clearly rubbish because that's a warm grey. And I'm going to just get the airbrush. I'm not going to empty the airbrush into it. I'm just going to hold it in my hand just so I've got it to mix with, and we'll grab a nice brush. Let's pick. Well, why not? Let's choose this large base brush. It's soft enough, it's clean enough. Just dip it in the water. And on the bit of paper, just warm this grey up even more. And then we're just going to start painting a few of these big rocks in. It'll look really bright and silly at the moment, but that's okay, that's fine. I'm going to do the same thing with the dark grey as well, some variants. Any of the big rocks we like the look of. Well, there's that one. So we'll colour that one in, and we'll have this one as well. Some big bits of slate round here. Let's have these. We'll probably pull up some of the little stones as well. That's no big issue. As long as we get these colours in. This one's obviously slightly yellower. That's okay. You can always take the paint off the brush, grab some a bit fresher, and then just dab it on where we want. Some more rocks in here. That one's loose, look. Any rocks around here we can get? There's a few. big bit of slate hiding away around this side. The toes are in here, so you need to be aware of where they are, just so we're not wasting time painting what we can't see. A few rocks in that colour. Let's grab a darker grey. Something like maybe Panzer dark grey. A lot of greens in this. We have enough of the colours down that we can work with that. Again, doesn't matter about being neat. All I want is the colours in. So that rock's now stacked up with two bits of different coloured slate. Put some more in. Put it around here. And if you start mixing with other paints, that's okay as well. Don't think you think that's painting, that's a bit of the structure that we've coloured in grey. We'll start picking a lot more of these out actually. Just actually very, very lightly, just dragging the brush across the tops. Going in the pale grey and the dark grey. Just hitting what we can see. A bit more pale over here. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, why didn't you just leave it unpainted? Because it looks very much like what it was like before you even started painting. Well, we needed to seal it in, and I wanted to be in control of the colours. That's the main reason why we didn't just leave the rocks the way they were. We could have done. We could have painted the base, stuck the rocks on, and left it, but it wouldn't have looked right, especially when get off there, especially when we start doing all the stages of tying the colours together, which will become shortly, because this won't take long to dry. What I could actually do here is load the brush up with the dark on one side and the light on the other. And find a nice rock. And work it this way. More natural. And pick out as many as you want. Not many rocks around here actually. I'll just hit the tops of these. While we're at it, while we're in here, we'll hit those as well. Okay, we'll let this dry and then we'll move on to the next stage. Okay, before I actually empty the airbrush, one thing I am going to do is I've watered it down a little bit because I actually did start cleaning the airbrush. With the orange that's in there, I'm going to dust slightly around some of these rocks. None of this is dry yet, it's still all covered in paint, still all wet. It's very watered down, however. Just dusting a few of them, so they still remain grey, but to have that orangey tint, starting work on that orangey tint. Just like that. The next job is to paint a few of these details in, just so because shortly we're going to be doing a lot of enamel spraying, and that will build up a lot of coloration. So before we do that, break out the Necro Gold, skill 75, and I'm going to go for these coils because these are plasma coils. I'm pretty sure they are. So I'm just going to hit them with the gold because I like gold coils rather than the standard bright blue. I think it works nicer, a bit more refined, rather than having everything glowing and crazy. Now we will be putting some OSL glows on the night at the end when we're all done. But not at this stage. They're like the last thing I like to do on a model, all the OSLs. There's only a few lights on it. Get the coils the right colour. Can we see the ones from the back? We can, so we have to hit them. I'm not worried about missing like I've just done there, so we need to paint this whole rim section. And there's a knight actually stood in the way as well, so it's not too critical. Right, what else can we do with this gold while we've got it out? Well, there's a few pipes kicking around on here. Could hit some of those. We'll just do them copper. Copper colour. Save the gold for the important things. Saying important things, there is a cog symbol here which we'll hit. Which means there'll be one on this. That's on the other side, so we're okay. Our cog symbols on the floor. Is there any we can hit with this? Not really. Most of that's going to be covered with pigments. There's an eagle here though. So we've got our eagle. Looking around. We should be okay for now. That's enough gold. So next colour we'll pick some copper out. Find it. There she is. Model colour copper. I'll put all these paints that I'm using in the description. Especially model air, metallic copper. Using it because it's nice and bright, nice and shiny. Decent coverage for a copper. So we've got pipes down here. These look to be pipes. They're actually cables, these two. Those two that you can see are cables. And there's a pipe there. So we'll colour that one in. And we'll colour these ones in as well. A bit more paint. Actually conduits rather than straight up pipes. It doesn't matter for us. And copper pipes. This will all be rough because the amount of weathering we're going to be doing on it doesn't particularly matter. There are some coils in here though we're going to hit. They're almost like motor rotor type things. And these ones. We'll hit the tap on the barrel. There's a little pipe on here. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be covered. It's just so we don't hit it with the weathering stuff, we can still see it. It's all really rough. Oh, there's a big pipe there. Big old pipe. We missed that one. Just suggestions. I forgot I had this spinny base. It's a big help on this base. Some of the details we will have to be a bit more tidy about, like the surrounds here. I'm going to paint the whole lot of this grill thing. Do some close-up videos of this as we go towards the end. Anywhere else copper while we're here? No, but I think we need to bring in some brighter colours, maybe some what's it called? Like maybe an aluminium. I don't think I need the brightness of a chrome at this stage. Maybe a gunmetal will do. Yeah, let's bring in the gunmetal. Model metallic gunmetal. Squidge that in. And just to tidy up some of these colours really. Probably take a bit of the paint off and just, although it's not a dry brush as such, just hit some of these edges. Some scratchy. We need some black as well, because the pipes need to be done black before we do any daft stuff. laying a little bit of texture on the side of this metal. Like I said, it's all basically impressionist work here. You don't want to have too much detail so you end up not looking subconsciously at the model itself. Just to give a flavour of what's going on. And it'll work. It won't look crazy when it's done. I promise you it'll be fine. Just going to lightly hit these barbed wires at this stage just so I don't visually forget about them. There's not a lot of paint going on this. Literally just rubbing the edge so I can start to see it. Let's grab some black paint then, do the pipes. The reason why we're using black paint rather than using, say, a dark grey and putting a wash on, because we want this to look old, and the easiest way to make a pipe look old, as in a rubber pipe, is to use a black. Then with some grey washes, you hit all the detail where you would normally put like a dark wash with a pale wash, and then it looks like it's almost a burnt rubber, and it works really well. I'll show you when we get going there. So we're just going to hit these pipes black. We're using model air for this, so it's a nice thin black. We don't get perfect coverage, that's fine. So all our underlying tones and all this, we can just go over these bits as well and pick them up out afterwards. All our underlying tones are the rusty brown, so I didn't worry. Get the colour on there. It's that one. I'm sure there's one around here somewhere. Where is it? Here we go. This one I'm going to pick out with another colour as well now. We'll put a red pipe within this. You're thinking, why isn't it black? It's ruining it. It just looks terrible. It's fine. It's going to be okay. You guys know, when I'm painting, it's a lot less about process. And I suppose you could say it's winging it really, but it's all about feel. And it's great to follow a process. Like let's say you're painting miniatures and you base coat, you wash, you clean up, you highlight. Yeah? That's a regimen everyone should get to know. But never feel scared about breaking out of that. Playing, seeing what looks good, because that's how you learn. Okay, you refine by following a process, sure. But by playing, how you find new stuff. New techniques, how you lessen boredom setting in. That should probably be stuck to the floor. It's flying in the air a bit. We can fix that with a bit of glue later. Can push it back down. You know what, I was thinking of doing red on one of those cables. The more I think about it, the less point there is, because it's going to be really weathered in, so we'll just leave those. We'll tidy them up though. Make sure we get all the angles in. It's another pipe. This one is a lot more high value. It's right at the front. It's going to be near the pilot. He's going to be stood around here, so we need to make sure this is a bit tidier. But as we mentioned, this is just the base, as in the base coat. We'll tidy it all up. Nearly there, and we'll move on to the next bit. And she's probably doing a little bit of white spray just on the side of that building. So although we put a bit of silver on there, there's still a mismatch. You can see there's a mismatch. Silver roof, white sides. Not great, we'll fix it. Anything else that's sticking out? That pipe. No, I think the main pipes are in. I think there's 3, 1, 2 and the top one. Let's clean up. Let's grab the white paint. We'll use just flat white from Tamir. I think I have a little bit left in this pot. If not, we can always use the ink. We have an ink at hand. Let's have a look in here. Is there any left? Ooh, there's very, very little left in here. Might have to be an ink. An ink paint. Ink's fine. White ink should do the job because it's going to be a very, very gentle application. It's going to look crazy until we get the enamels on there, but let's grab the airbrush. I did clean it before moving on. So let's stick a load in to one side, prime it. Prime it and spray it. That's all we need to do. Just lighten those areas. I'm not worried about getting the underneath of it. So as you can see, there is a shadow where we can't spray. That's alright. That'll just have natural shadow. About this side, a little bit on here. What I'm going to do is do this panel as well. Really loose. Now where's a brush? Toothbrush might work for this. Maybe finger. Yeah, finger works better. Just adding natural marks to the paint. So it looks like I've got a bit of a run. Sometimes we've got really heavy. Toothbrushing. There we've got like a whitewash effect on there. And when we get the weathering on that, it'll look really nice. We'll highlight maybe a couple of these rocks while I've got the ink out. something like that. And as we get rid of this ink, we can move on. I'm thinking at this stage we start to bring some of those, at least an initial pass of the enamels in. But a good idea of how it's looking. So just move all these paint wells out the way at the back in case we need them in the future, and that we will. But we'll see. Lid on the ink, so the worst thing would have been if I'd spilled that entire bottle. Right, let's have a look. Grab our enamel paints in so we can see what we're working with. Well, that one's on the floor. Stand up. So, light rust wash will be good. This will be going on at the end. The majority of the work is going to be carried out by these three, which are the crusted rusts. We have dark, which is a nice red colour. It looks like a chestnutty red, but it goes really, really bright. They all, in fact, dry really brightly because they've got a really high base pigment in them. Light rust, medium rust, and dark rust. Light, medium, dark. So we're going to start off with, I'm thinking the medium. See how that looks. We can always use this afterwards to darken areas. So if we go medium, we can always go lighter and darker. If we go dark, we'll leave it. Okay, so if we started with the dark, by the time we got to the light, we'd have very little dark left. Start with the medium. We can blend a little bit of light in, and then a little bit of dark in, and have a bit more control, I feel, if I start with the medium, and then we can branch out either way. If we go this way, we can only go up. So we've also got the rust streaks as well if we need to go really, really dark with our shadows. And we probably will around the feet areas just so it stands out. Let's move it into position. Give these a good shake because they require it. I'm actually going to open the window even further. There's going to be a lot of spraying here. Okay, here we go. It's maybe over, what's the word I'm looking for? Voice over on this section. We should start to see an immediate improvement on all the tones. Stage 1. As you can see, as it dries, it brightens right up. We'll be reactivating all this because it is an enamel. So we can bring in the white spirits at some point and move all these pigments around. Let's now grab the dark. Just adding some contrast here and there. Immediately around where the feet are. Check the flow. I'm starting to modulate the colour, and it still looks very, very pale. That's okay. But this looks like the clay colour it originally was. Colours will really start to take off once we get all the pigments in. That out, do a little bit of light, and then we'll do the light rust wash. Airbrush is getting really filthy. added. A little bit of light. Be very sparing with the light rust. For one, it's a luminous orange. It dries like almost a white. That's all we're going to do with the light. Tip it back in that pot. And give it a shake because there is some remnants of other colours in there as well. Let's get the white spirit to clean this. And we're just going to use our big old dirty tub of white spirit. We didn't use anything fancy for this stage. We might get the pigments out ready. Why have I just tipped that enamel wash into my water bin? That was a mistake. So, we have our white spirit at the ready. Bartoline Premium Low Odor White Spirit if you're in the UK. We don't need anything fancy. Let's find a big soft brush. Might even use an old dry brush for this. Let's see what pigments we have at hand. We've got a couple here. We've got Burnt Sienna. Nice colour, especially for rust. Dark Red Ochre. Another good rust colour. Keep hitting that bloody camera. Let's see if we got hidden away. Brown Iron Oxide. I think they're going to be the three we're going to use. They're all very similar, but they're all nice rusty Martian colours. Before we get that far, let's start wetting our brush with white spirit. We'll just start dabbing it on, cleaning up a few areas here and there, so the rocks that we painted grey will start to show through again. Don't want to go totally crazy. You can even start attacking these doors that were silver. Just make sure we go in vertical lines without cleaning up. Get some streaks coming back. You saw how simple that was. I'm starting to bring those rusty colours to life on the model. Same across here. Hitting the areas just to bring out that copper that we originally put in, and then we can attack it with some copper oxide oils as well afterwards. Bringing some blues and greens into it. Again, just dabbing it on loosely. If we find a rock we want to bring back to life, we can hit it. About this area here looks very pastely at the moment, so let's bring some of that metal colour back. Like so. It won't dry quite that vivid. It looks great, doesn't it? It's just a light scrub, this. Just a light scrub. Just move pigment around. Bring some of those rocks back. And of course the black wire. If you're happy with the effect on anywhere, like on the barrel, I'm quite happy with that barrel being as it is. We might change it, we might not. Let's see what happens if we do this white panel. I'm just going to go straight over it. And again the other side. We can pull up if we want. If it looks a bit streaky, it's okay. Just add a bit more white spirit. Let it diffuse those rust colours down. On here, we'll wet that and try and encourage some downward motion. Now a lot of this was painted prior, as you saw what it was like before. So by doing this, we're just introducing new colours and new shades to it. It's all very loose. You need to judge when's too much and when's not enough. This barrel we aren't going to attack. Always try to go in the direction of the up and down motion when you're cleaning. Never go across unless you've got good reasons to. This thing. Let's do this thing. See, we're just encouraging all this pigment to move where we want it to move to. We're not set in stone of where everything is. There's not very much on here at all yet, which is great. We're still fully able to make it as we want it. I'm going to do that barrel actually. I decided we're going to do it. So we're going to do it across this way. So water or fluids or some sort of rain, some acid rain maybe on Mars or whatever Martian-like surface we're on. Let's go up that way and spin it round and do it up this way. Attack the back of that, which I don't think I did copper, but be fine. The only other thing we haven't touched at the moment is that thing. So we're going to go for angle again. Pull any pigments the way we want to pull them. On the top, this direction. There's not a lot on the top. Not a lot up here. There's enough just to tie it in. now we're a full sort of initial wetting from the white spirits. So do we now start to sprinkle some pigment on? And the pigment will be interesting. There's a couple of ways you can do pigments. One way of doing pigments is you make a slurry and apply the slurry, which works, it's fine, you can do that, no problem. The method I'm thinking we do it is we just sprinkle it on and then we wet with a pipette. We just add white spirit over the top and hopefully it'll bloom and pull where we want it. So let's start with which is the mid-tone of these three? Probably the burnt sienna. We'll have a look at it in the pot first, see whether it's going to match. And yes, it is. Rather than just dump this on, what I'm going to do is use this dry brush and just like dust it over. So when it gets to the edge, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work in little portions of the model. Like so, we'll rub this around a bit, just gently, because we don't want to pull the rocks away. And we start getting something which looks nice. So we're on the lusterstone. We're on the white spirit base, so it should act as a little bit like a glue. Here and there anyway. Rubbing it in, make it look like a nice dirt. See, it's quite an effective way of building up a Martian surface really quickly. Scrub this in here. Start getting that look we're after. Downside about pigments is you don't have to make a mess everywhere. And we can put some, in fact, you know what, I'm just going to use this singular pigment, because what we'll be able to do is once this is attached where we want it, we can go over with the what's it called, crusted rusts again, just to modulate that colour as and where we want it. We'll get in there though. Do a bit more down here. And we're not really scrubbing, we're just dabbing it in where we want it. If you get too much, just work it until you get there. Bit of a zoom in so you can see where we're at. Bit more light. There we go. How's that? Grab a bit more pigment and unload down here. and then just push it in. Somewhere like so. At some point I'll be getting the big knight down. We'll be attaching him shortly because we'll need to start putting the pigments onto him around his feet. But that'll be after we've got this initial dusting done. So we'll be able to look at it and work out whether we need to paint anything else or whether we're happy with how it's going. And there's going to be a bit tough to get to for you guys on the camera. And I can see it. If it starts to get a bit too dry, because it is hot here, so we might need to get some more white spirit on. We have our pipette at the ready. Let's pull the white spirit up. Just do that. We can always add more in if we need to. This rock's a bit bright. Let's colour it in. Let's get the vacuum cleaner out and hoover all this up. It's a big old mess going on. It's one of the only reasons why I try and do pigment work so infrequently, because I can't help just making a right mess of everything. It's just the way it is. Now I can see already that that barrel needs some more work on it. It's starting to dry. It's okay though. I'm gonna use my finger to smooth away any blends I wasn't keen on. Yeah, we'll still do a little bit of work on it. You can't really go wrong as long as you keep to that idea in your mind of what you wanted to get to. And you've done a little bit of detail picking out, because you saw we didn't go crazy on the detail. Had a bit of copper here and there. The pigments are the key. Really are. Oh, too wet, so we've been making a mess there. Let's just pull the colours in as we want them. Brush is manky. So we're not too far away from being able to stick the knight on. In fact, should we put him on? Should we go and get the knight, stick him on the base? See what happens. He's not going to be glued on yet. Do I need to make up some epoxy and glue him on? I'm not going to pin him. Because what I want to happen is if he falls over, the whole model falls over, I want him to have a point where he'll not snap, he'll just sort of topple, and that will probably be this base.